We're talking about function rules, tables, and graphs today. You will definitely want your calculator, so I got mine here. There are 3 ways to model a function, and we've talked about functions all last week, so that shouldn't be a new term for you. See if that looks a little bit better. Got a glare going on. All right, that's a little bit better. Now, there's 3 ways, like I said, to model a function, and the first one is by a function rule, which looks something like number 1 here, this y equals negative 1/2 x plus 4. It's telling you multiply the x by negative 1/2, add 4, that's your function rule. Okay, so you can model a function with its rule. You can also model a function with a table. We saw those all last week too. And you can show someone what a function looks like by giving them the picture of it on the graph. And last week I gave you a function table, I gave you the graph, and you guys had to tell me if it was a function by seeing if x repeated. So those are the 3 ways that we can model what's going on with some kind of function, whatever we're looking at. So today we're going to practice filling out the table for a certain function and then plotting those points to get the picture in the graph. Like I said, you definitely want your calculator. It's going to make it a lot easier. So this first one is y equals negative 1/2 x plus 4. Now, they didn't give you anything on the table. So my suggestion is that you guys always use the same x values because you need to pick which x values to use. Okay, we like to pick 0, and I put that in the middle. 0 is easy to plug in, so always pick 0. People want to just pick 1, 2, 3, and 4, which is great, but if you only use positives, then you'll only see the graph on the right side, and you just won't get a good picture of it. So you have to use some negatives. My suggestion is to always use these 5 numbers if I don't tell you exactly what to use like I did on the very last one. Okay, so I would always use -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, unless I tell you otherwise. All right, so here's how, and I want to show you on my calculator here, how I kind of make this as easy as possible for myself. I know that one at a time, I need to plug these numbers in for x to get the y that goes with it. So let's see, negative 1/2, and a lot of you have this same calculator as I do. So that's going to look like negative, get it so you can see it here. We'll cover up the graph. -1, fraction button is the ABC, half. When we plug numbers in, we always have to put them in parentheses. So I need to put it in my calculator like that. So use your parentheses, -2 plus 4. Okay, when I plug that in, I should get 5. That's my y value. Make this as easy as possible for yourself. So to plug in -1, just arrow up, go over the 2, and put a 1 in there. Oh, don't miss. And then hit equals, and you get 4.5, which is what that's trying to tell you there with that little u. That's just 4.5. I'm going to say 4.5. Do the same thing then. Just arrow up and put in 0 right over top of the 1. I don't need the negative, so I'm going to hit delete, this DEL button, to get rid of it. And I get 4. I'm going to arrow up and put in 1. That's trying to tell me 3.5. I'm going to arrow up and put in 2, and I get 3. Okay, so that's me. I'm trying to show you how easy that is if you just leave all the information in your calculator and just arrow up. It makes it so much quicker than retyping the whole thing in every time. These are just ordered pairs, x's and y's here. So I need to plot these points, which we were doing last week. The first one's going to be -2, left 2, up 5. Then I have -1, and yes, you'll have to kind of estimate 4.5. So go up 1, 2, 3, 4.5. 0, 4, 1, 1, 2, 3, 3.5. And then 2, 3. Oop, that was 2, 2. 2, 3, ignore my little point there. Hopefully you used pencil. And then I'm going to connect them. Okay, so I'm going to make an extra note about the shape of each graph. If you recognize this, this is in y equals mx plus b. Slope-intercept, which we're getting to that in about a week or so, so get ready. If you see something in mx plus b, the shape of it is always a line. Always. So if you get something that's not a line, a heart, whatever, I mean, that's adorable, but it should be a line, so be real careful. Okay, this next one definitely is not a line because it's absolute value now. I'm going to pick those same numbers, -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. Unfortunately, I cannot plug this into my calculator, so, or at least with the bars, so I kind of have to do a little work on my own here. But I know I just need to remove the x and put in -2. The bars here are going to make this a +2. But then this negative is going to attach right onto that and make it go right back to a -2. So I'm looking at -2 plus 4, which is +2. Okay, we should be able to fill out the rest of the table. So here is the values that you do get. Okay, and if I plot these points, -2, 2, -1, 3, 0, 4, 1, 3, and 2, 2. What I'm looking at is like an upside down V-shaped. Okay, so if you ever see absolute value, those bars there, it's always going to look like that. It's not a line. It's V-shaped. And that's real easy to remember because, and I'm going to highlight it, absolute value starts with a V, and it's V-shaped. So convenient, easy to remember. It might be upside down, it might be right side up, but it's always a V-shaped if it's absolute value. So kind of be thinking about that when you go to graph something. If you're aware of the shape and you get something that's not that shape, you know you made a mistake in your table, so go back and fix it. Okay, example 3, using my same x values. Notice they used f of x instead of y, but it's okay. That means the same thing. This time it's an x squared, so it's not a line, it's not V-shaped, it's going to be something else. But I'm going to plug these numbers in one at a time in my calculator, and I'm going to show you how to do that. I know I need to use parentheses when I plug a number in for x, so I need to put that in my calculator exactly like that. So 2 parentheses -2. Squared is the x squared there, -5. And I get 3. Make your life easier. Arrow up and just change the 2 to a 1. You should get -3. Bring it back up, change it to a 0, and delete the negative. And you get -5. Change it to a 1, and you get -3. And then I get 3 for 2. Okay, plot my points. -2, go up 3, go left 1 and down 3, go down 5, down 3, and I'm going kind of fast with plotting the points because I'm assuming that you have refreshed your skills from last week and you remember how to do that from last year. If you connect these make a U-shaped. Now, if it's an x squared, it's what we call a quadratic. And we spend the whole last unit of the year doing quadratics, so yay, get excited. Quadratics are always U-shapes. And maybe that's easy to remember because there's a U in quadratic, but ooh, there's also a U in absolute and value, so I don't know, maybe you just need to memorize it. But quadratics are always U-shaped, and if you remember from last year, those actually have a special name. They're called parabolas. Okay, but again, recognizing the shape is going to help you check yourself on your graph. Because if I get something different, I did it wrong. All right, we got a few more. If I look at number 4 here, I see an x squared. This is a quadratic. I better get a u. If I come up with like I said, a heart or like a smiley face, I mean, that's so cute, but it's wrong. I need it to be a u. So get my 5 values in there. When I plug a number in for x, I just remove the x and I put parentheses that number in its place. So there's still a negative out there. Be careful in your calculator. You need that negative at the beginning, otherwise you're going to get the wrong graph. Square it, plus 3, and I should get -1. Plug in 1, and I get 2. Delete the negative, plug in 0. Plug in 1, and I plug in 2. Okay, if you can't plug all this into your calculator, I mean, you obviously can do it by hand. If you're having trouble plugging it in, you've got to ask for help. If I plot my points, hopefully this turns out to be a U. This time it's an upside down U, but we're good. And just a little helpful hint, the negative that was in front of the x squared, that makes it go upside down. So if there's a negative there, it's going to be an upside down U. If it's not there, it's going to be right side up. See how in the absolute value there was a negative sign in front? That makes it go upside down. Good thing to note. All right, we got 2 more. Next one. Ooh, this is different. It's not a quadratic, it's a cubic function. This is x cubed, which is unknown what the shape looks like. So let's find out. Parentheses are important, so I need to plug that into my calculator. If you don't know how to raise something to the 3rd power, you press this caret button right here, and then press 3. So that's -8. -1, 0, 1, and 8. All right, plot your points. So -2, -8. -1, -1, 0, 0, 1, 1, and 2, 8. All right, there's no cute name for this shape. Kind of looks like a weird squiggly thing, I'm not sure. But this is what a cubic function always looks like. So I'm not going to put a name because I don't really know what to call it. But if you see an x cubed, it always looks like this. Weird little squiggly. Okay, last one is square root, which maybe you've done some stuff with that, maybe not. Square root means like what squared equals that number, and I'm going to show you how to put it in the calculator. Notice they already picked x values for me, so if they do that, throw out the -2, -1, the 5 numbers we've been using. I need to plug my numbers in like that. Parentheses are good. Here's how you do that. Square root is like the opposite of squared. So if you see above the x squared, there's a little square root there. It's in blue, so I have to press second x squared. Notice it automatically starts the parentheses for you. FYI, if you got that when you plugged it in, you pressed second caret. You got the one with the x out front, you don't want that. You want to press second x squared, so it looks like that. It started parentheses for me, so I just need to close them after the 0, and then add 2. And technically we don't need the calculator, guys. I just want you to be able to work with your calculator because it's a really useful tool. The square root of 0 is just 0. If I come up here and plug in 4, the square root of 4 is 2, plus 2 is 4. If I plug in 9, I get 5. if I plug in, and I'm going to have to maybe delete because I need the negative in there. So -1 plus my 2. Okay, look what it told me there. I can't do that, and the reason you can't do it is you can't take the square root of a negative number. There is nothing that times itself equals -1, so that is not possible, okay? Make sure, if that ever happens and it says error or domain, you're not wrong. I'm just going to kind of like get rid of that. Okay, so there's a good chance I won't give you a table that happens in. I just kind of wanted to show you that sometimes you'll see that, and you're not wrong. It's just you can't take the square root of a negative number. So I'm only going to plot those 3 points to get what this graph looks like. So 0, 2, 4, 4, and 9, 5. Here's what it looks like. You don't continue the graph this way because there aren't answers. These aren't possible. So if you see a square root function, which you won't see this a whole lot, not till really algebra 2, it's just kind of like part of a graph. It stops right here and is just that part.